basically, in the heat and horror of summer, I was rewatching one of the greatest stories ever told, and I got to my favourite episode, Lullaby in Frogland, and I thought I could remake this entire scene out of plushies. I could do all the riverboat frogs, do a big model of Wirt and Greg and the gang, and film it like it is in the show. Pretending to be sensible, I told myself, let's not get ahead of ourselves, focus on the model first. But secretly I was thinking, I'm gonna do a couple of frogs, I'm gonna do a couple of riverboat frogs. I didn't do that. But I did spend 3 months on the model. Now, I've drawn this scene before, I've made jumpers of this scene before, so I had the basic design of what I wanted, but other than that I had no clue what I was doing. But basically I started by making a wireframe of the basic height and the basic pose I wanted Wirt to be in. And for some reason I covered the entire thing in pipe cleaners. I don't know why I did this, but I have the footage of it, But to give the body a bit more squish and a bit more form, I covered it in yarn and filled him out a little bit. To make sure he was even squishier and almost plushy-like, I put stuffing over him and pinned down the fabric to make this horrifying skin graft that makes him look like a cheap Doctor Who alien. To make it less like a cheap Doctor Who alien, played around with the size and shape of his eyes and his nose and his facial expression. The rest of the body was a similar process of tying stuffing to it and putting fabric around it and sewing it down, which was very difficult around the hands and came out very messy. Next I made him his tailored white shirt. It's very simple, really boring. I certainly did it. The only way I could think to get the fabric around this yarn monstrosity was to do it in a bunch of ladder stitches, which I'm not very good at, but boy did I get practice. Now, I had absolutely no plan going in with the shoes. I tried a bunch of things and kept ripping them off and starting again, and eventually I settled on covering foam with fabric and gluing that on. It gives it a bit more structure, it looks kind of clunky, but in the thing you can't really notice them. And then in a continued attempt to try and get it to stand when it was done, the shoes were done with a base of clay, and the soles of the shoes I made out of clay. To weigh it down, but it doesn't work at all, but it looks fine, you know, it does the job. I rolled up a bit of felt for his signature cone and I bonded it to his head forever. After all that hand stitching, the cloak was a piece of cake. It was just 2 rectangular, triangle-like bits of fabric sewn together, turned inside out. Done. I made sure it was big enough to cover Wirt with the frog on his head and Wirt on his own, because the logistics of that scene don't make any sense. Obviously, it's a cartoon. So what I decided to do was pin it up with some buttons, so when Wirt doesn't have a frog on his head, it fits him and you can take the buttons down to fit the frog in. Then I just added a few extra details and I decided Wirt was, you know, good enough. Now, Greg was more of a mixture between plushie and model. He didn't need to be as tall and he's a bit chubbier, so he doesn't need as much structure. Basically, you can kind of see it here, I made a bowling pin kind of shape for his body and then 2 circles for his head. Step 2 was to make a complete monstrosity out of the circle shape for his head. And then the next thing you have to do is attach the head to the body to make a separate monstrosity. After that, I used a candy cane to measure how long I wanted the arms to be because I couldn't find my ruler, and then I made the arms. Off camera, I added the hair and hand stitched the teapot. Hand stitching little props is my favourite thing to do in a project. If I could do it for everything, I would. I think it helps him look a little less cursed, so... To make Greg look even more Greg-like, I made his puffy pants out, which is basically just 2 butt shapes cut out of fabric and sewn together, and then pulled tight around his legs to get the puffy to get to the puff. And then, you guessed it, I had to make another boring white shirt. And with that, Old Candy Pants was done. Except in that scene he is cunningly disguised as a drum, so I had to make a drum. I measured up his head, cut out 2 circles, and did the same thing of covering foam in fabric so it was a bit sturdier. And joined the 2 together and hand sewed on some little drum details. After that, the only thing left to do was completely destroy it. For Beatrice, because she was so small, I decided to needle felt her, which I've done a couple of times in plushies, like for little details, but I've only ever made a whole figure out of it once. I don't know why that is though. I find the craft so fun and cathartic, and I'm by no means an expert at all, but it's really simple and just a hoot. I started by making 2 different sized balls and stabbing them together over some pipe cleaner legs until it was vaguely Beatrice shaped. Then it was as simple as covering her in light layers of Beatrice colours and stabbing her until she was Beatrice coloured. I also felted some tiny, fiddly little bird eyes and a little bird beak. I also had to make sure to keep squishing her back into a Beatrice shape because for some reason stabbing something for a couple of hours was making it kind of lumpy. But I'm really happy with the results. I definitely want to do more needle felting. With the frog, I was back in my wheelhouse. I just made him as a straight up plushie. I've made a couple of frogs before, and goblins are kind of similar vein, so I already have a very extensive pattern on this. It was literally just sewing 2 bean, eggy shaped bits of fabric together, but one has extra flaps for his little feet. Now the most important part of any frog is the beads. They give little textures to his fingers and his toes. But other than that, I have no idea what I'm doing. I tend to just sew lines onto it and it's good enough. And then it's the stuffing and you hope that it comes out vaguely frog shaped. For the eyes of the frog, I put a little bit of stuffing on a slightly less little bit of fabric and tie it together into a ball. Then I stab that into the frog head while I sew it into place. Then I just drape the same colour fabric over the eye to try and pin down where the eyelid wants to go. There tends to be a bit of faffing to get this right. Now, this isn't just any frog. This frog has personality and dark marks on its back. Did a similar draping process, just cut out a bit of fabric the same size as the frog and tried to get the markings that you can see in the TV show. Once I had something completely asymmetrical that I was happy with. It was a little too clean and not bumpy and jagged as a frog should be. So I awkwardly held it in front of the camera and hacked away at it with my scissors. So to finish the project, I had a cozy time and did my favourite thing, sewing little props. So you know, let's have a look at the finished thing. This thing is 2 foot and honestly difficult to fit on camera, but I am really proud of it. Like I say, it's the first time I've done anything like a model. I definitely want to do it again sometime, but I don't know what to do it on, so if you have any ideas, let me know. But I'm also going back to regular plushies and a slightly smaller project next time. This has been 3 months of my life and I'm so glad it's over, and I love it, and I have nowhere to store it, but it's mine. Want to see what shenanigans I get up to next and what my next project is? Stick around, like and subscribe, comment stuff. But either way, thank you for watching. Goodbye.